friends. I recently had a conversation with a guy named Sam Raetz, who is a photographer who has a very photojournalistic style. There was a project that he was a part of where he took photos of firefighters in the woods of Utah. This is a project in collaboration with a company called Filson. You can find the article where his photos are featured there, and then you can also go to his website and see this project as well. I will link below to both of them. Sam is very talented. He has a strong and unique style, and his approach to his work is very thoughtful, and I really enjoyed picking his brain about what he's up to. He's also from Nebraska, and we all know what that means. He absolutely loves Russian classical music. Actually, I can't substantiate that. I was very intrigued by everything we spoke about in this conversation, and I would encourage you guys to go listen to the full version on my podcast. I'll link to that as well. But anyway, I really enjoyed conversating and learning about Sam, and thank you so much, Sam, for being a part. Hi, Sam. How's it going?
Mr. Red, how are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you being willing to give me some of your time, talk about your projects and what you're up to. I'm highly interested in all of your work because I think you're a very talented photographer, a very interesting photographer. There was a project that I came across by you. I forget how I found it, but I'm so interested in it. You took these photos in Draper, Utah of some firefighters who I think were preparing a forest to avoid wildfires. And so I know that this is a pretty intense job for the firefighter folk. In terms of the work ethic of these guys, tell me about that, because I feel like they're pretty hardworking characters.
Yeah, they're sleeping outside on the ground. These guys are burning 8,000 calories a day, and they got 50-pound rucksacks on. They're thousands of feet of elevation a day. This was my first project where I did some traveling for, and I was kind of like a kid on Christmas. It was like, I can't wait to do this. Like, I'm gonna go 1,000 miles an hour. Let's rock and roll. And then I got there, and I just have this little camera bag, and I'm kind of going up and down the mountains with these guys, and I was kind of like, Were you winded? Yeah, they kicked my butt.
The mountains of Utah are no joke.
I'd never been to, so this was actually my first trip to Utah, and I learned that out the hard way. So, and I probably should have prefaced this, but the photos were like the last couple days of training. So I spent 3 days with them. I camped with them, hiked with them, ate with them, slept with them, all that kind of stuff. And they actually got called to their first fire this season 2 days later, and they went from the Draper area down to Texas to fight a wildfire.
Was it important for you to have this sort of intimate living experience with them for a little bit? Yeah,
and that was something I didn't know if I was going to get to experience fully, because with being a state organization, there was kind of a lot of red tape to cut through to get to it. And having a photographer tag along is not only a health risk to me potentially, like if something goes bad, or if I break my leg, or like have a heat exhaustion or something like that, but then it kind of puts an added risk on those guys too, because they're kind of more, when I'm on that mountain, they were kind of they're not babysitting me, but they're kind of babysitting. So I actually
don't step on that chainsaw.
Yeah, right. So there was a lot of red tape, and I didn't know if I was going to get to sleep with them. And to me, that was a super, I don't know why, because I didn't take like if you go through the gallery, you go to the article, there's no real nighttime photos, but that just seemed like a super critical component of the project for me, because like what you touched on earlier, I like to really get to know people and kind of find out their story before I just like pull out this camera and, hey, you don't know me and I'm not from here, but can you do this pose, or can you, hey, stop for a second and look at me, and that kind of stuff. Like the people I enjoy shooting photos of aren't necessarily the group of people that like getting their picture taken. To be able to form relationships, or to be out there and grinding with those guys, or kind of sweating with them, rather than I'm going to the Hilton Inn and back in Salt Lake City. Do you guys want me to bring you any breakfast in the morning? Like it seems super inauthentic, and that's like against kind of everything I try to do.
Yeah, I do like those blueberry muffins that you can get at like a Motel 6 though. You know,
that was a really important piece of it to me, and I'm glad that I did, because I didn't take any nighttime photos, but if you go through the gallery, you can see the photos of the guys hiking up the hill. So that took place right at daybreak, and those were some of the best photos I got out of the entire gallery. So I'm really glad I did it.
When you were taking the photos, you also, along with the sort of natural, what do people call it? the natural candid photos, you were taking portraits, and you were taking these portraits that felt very well thought out. And you know, you'd have shots of people, I guess, in a locker room, and and that. And also you had a really nice shot of all the guys together. One of the guys is licking his chainsaw, I think.
The only two shots that weren't completely candid were after their first meeting, the day that I was there. So some of those portraits, actually just one of the portraits of the guys at the base before they left, one of those was, I told him to stop and I took his photo. And then so that was basically the first photo I took. It was not candid. And then the last group picture, that was not candid. But otherwise, everything I was just kind of hauling ass to get in position, or it was almost kind of like I was dancing with the guys. Like they would move one way and I would either go up the mountain or down the mountain, or where the sun's at. I'm trying to get in position to where I think the next solid shot's going to be. So, and that's another thing too. I get a lot of questions about that with this project. Like how did you get these guys to like stop in the middle of the work or that kind of stuff? And it was all completely authentic. And this is a project that I was really proud of. And I was kind of nervous because it was super sunny, like on the flight back. But when I sat down and looked at the photos, it was like, whoa, these are really cool.
What was one of the more challenging photos for you to create?
Can I say all of them for a project? Kind of what I was touching on, how it's important to me to get to know someone, especially if it's someone that's not where I'm from, or we don't have the same background, that kind of thing. It's important for me to get to know them. Those first couple portraits I was taking, and kind of like that, it's sort of like the proverbial first date of the shoot. It's like we're kind of feeling each other out. I would say everyone I take photos of, I'm super appreciative that they let me into their circle, kind of thing, and I have a ton of respect for these people. So like that first moment where both sides kind of allowed themselves to be a little vulnerable, like those first couple portraits, they were kind of the icebreaker. And then I touched on these photos earlier, but the ones where, and you can go to my Instagram and look, but the very first one I posted from the project where they were walking up that kind of in formation, you know, I was focused on the leader, whose name's Wade Snyder. He was kind of my main contact. I was basically like backwards sprinting up, because these guys are hiking, but they're basically like Olympic power walkers, and they're just like going up this hill, like not breaking a sweat early in the morning. And it was like 5:45 or 5:30. And it was really dark, so I'm keeping my shutter speed as low as I possibly can while still keeping it sharp and tight. I didn't know it at the time that those photos turned out as well as they did, but like when I went back and went through them, that's one of those photos that when I'm 50, 60, 70, I'll always think about that one, just because I don't know why. It's kind of, I'm not one to toot my own horn, but it's almost kind of like hauntingly beautiful, and I feel like it tells a lot of stories. So like the hardest photo ended up being kind of my favorite.
A lot of times I feel like when you are very proud of something, the trail that led up to that, the sort of meteor trail, was a lot of hard work. It's like more work than you would normally put in for a photo. And then you realize, oh, to get these types of photos, I need to be able to challenge myself and push myself a little bit. For sure, yeah. So I'm curious, first off, how did you get into photography in the first place?
I never really considered myself artistic in any sense of the word. And me and my brother, we'd go out west to kind of the western panhandle of Nebraska, and we'd duck hunt out there. We'd go to the family farm, and the duck hunting is unbelievable. And I ended up getting a dog, a chocolate lab, who's 6 years old now, Izzy. And like I'd be out there duck hunting on like these super, it's like huge fields, but really tight sloughs. So it's like you're hunting just a very small strip of land in kind of the middle of nowhere. So it's very intimate. I'm in this place that's romantic or important to me, with the most important people in the world to me at that time. And this dog who is my world. And it was like, holy cow, I'm gonna want to remember this in 20 years, 30 years, however many years. Like I should start taking a camera out here, just to kind of one of those things where it's like a journal, so to speak.
Like, what's your goal on a daily basis when you're taking photos? What do you hope to achieve with your work?
So my goal would be to make someone, like I show someone a photo and they feel like, A, wow, that's a beautiful photo, and B, I feel like I could tell my entire story by this photo you just took of me. Like that would be one of the highest compliments. Like if I'm riding around with a rancher or the hotshot stuff, or if I'm hunting with people in western Nebraska or anything else, if they feel like it tells who they are as a person, or like their culture or their community, then I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, That is really a very interesting answer. I would not have expected that. I think that's fantastic. Like, I was expecting you to sort of go outward and say, I hope people see my photos and that they're inspired to change their lives and what have you. But you actually turned it in towards the person that you're photographing. So when people are looking at your photography, whether now or in the future, what is something that is very important to you for them to experience? I would want to be able to take a time machine and go back 30 or 40 years and talk to my grandparents and say, these are the photos I took. And they say, wow, they're beautiful. And they're definitely telling a story. And I would want that same exact thing to be said by people today. And I would want my grandchildren and their friends to say the same exact thing 40 or 50 years from now. So I think my identity, I want my photos identity as a whole, my portfolio, to be timeless. And I don't think that is probably one of the most important aspects of kind of my artistic side. Worse than, wow, that was illy composed, or the lighting's off, or did he edit this thing on the Instagram app, or like I think worse than any of those insults would be like, oh, that's kind of gimmicky, or like forgettable,
forgettable,
unremarkable,
exactly. Trendy, that kind of stuff, like cool today, and then like tomorrow it's like, well, that doesn't excite me anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I want my photos, if someone looks at them on a like annual basis, for them still to feel the same emotion a year ago or now as they did a year ago and the year before that and the year before that.
And I think that speaks to the importance of that it's a good idea to treat your work as an artist with a level of seriousness, because it's so easy as a photographer to take a bunch of pretty photos and then die.
Right.
And that's why I think it's so important to think about the meaning of your work on a consistent basis. Redefine that daily.
I completely agree.
I think, unless you have anything else to say that will blow the minds of the masses, I think this is a good place to wrap up.
You think so? Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out of your night to meet with me. And
likewise.
Yeah, it's been fun.
It's been good, man. I'd love to do it again anytime. All right.
Cool.
Hi, I'm outside now. I'm sure you're overwhelmed by all of the nature. I had a lovely time talking with Sam. I would encourage you to go check out his website if you are at any level of being a photographer, any level of excellence of being a photographer, and see where you can close the creative gap between you and him, because he's a very, I'm sure he'll be flattered to hear this, he's a very talented, well-rounded photographer. If you're not a photographer, just go bask in the excellence and be inspired by his art form to your art form. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day. Goodbye.